Hey, Street Talking Other Stuff, Mike, Mad Dog Magnati. Thanks for tuning in today. Start of the holiday season. This is a great time of year. Thanksgiving is this Thursday. I hope you're ready. I did most of my shopping on Sunday. I got a little more to do, but great time. Have a good time with your family. Don't put up your Christmas tree or start playing Christmas music after Thanksgiving. Thank you. Remember, every time a Christmas song plays before Thanksgiving, Santa has to shoot an elf. Some people aren't going to think that's very funny, but I don't care. But hey, thanks for tuning in. Look, I got a good show today. There's a lot of stuff going on in this world that I want us to pay attention to, and I want to bring one of these issues to the forefront today when we talk about it, but I've got a good guest, I've got a good show, so you stick around. Street Talking Other Stuff, we will be right back. So.
When your heating or cooling system is giving you trouble, call the diagnostic doctor from Dick's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Here's the culprit right here.
All joking aside, when you call Dick's, you're calling 35 years of experience at customer service right here in the Wenatchee Valley. Dick's strongly believes in repairing before replacing, and they service all major brands of HVAC units.
Guten Sie mir das Problem sagen?
Meinen Zylinder überschwingt. Flute, ich habe mein Fugen verloren.
Keine Sorge.
Global Car Care. We speak your car's language.
Fragen schließen. Hey, you.
Well, I got a leaky transmission, my head gasket's shot, and I could use some new brake pads.
That dog don't hunt.
Global Car Care. We speak your car or truck's language.
Hi, I'm Eric Grandstrom.
And I'm Brent Rhodes with the NCW Community Toy Drive presented by Les Schwab.
Be sure to join us Saturday, November 25th at Hooked on Toys for our Toy Drive kickoff.
I'll be there broadcasting live on Country 104.7 KKRV starting at 9.
And we'll be live on NCW Live Channel from 10 to 11.
Find out more about the organizations that serve children here in North Central Washington.
Help us kick off the Toy Drive this year to make sure everyone has a Merry Christmas.
See you Saturday at Hooked on Toys.
And Happy Holidays.
Hey, welcome back to Save Mart. What can we help you find today?
We're looking for a mattress.
Oh, right this way. We got a large selection. We have this pillow top here.
Oh, comfortable.
We have more to choose from down here.
Oh.
I think I have the perfect one over here for you.
I guess we'll take this one.
You'll find it at Save Mart. Full service at a low, low price.
Okay, we're back. Thanks for being here today, and I want to introduce my guest to those of you who may not know him, but this is my good buddy, Dr. Jim Goodwin. James.
Good to see you too,
it's
buddy.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a while. We haven't talked, but
yeah.
I appreciate you coming on today. And I asked Jim to come on because I want to talk about anti-Semitism, hatred of the Jewish people. This is an issue that is coming to the forefront now. I think there's a Jewish organization that says anti-Semitism is on the rise hundreds of percent over it was before.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with the issue between Israel and Hamas right now, but I want to talk in general terms more so. I want to maybe deal with that topic a little bit.
Yeah.
Being a member of the tribe, so to speak, you know, one of our representatives of the chosen people, as I like to say. Your experience with anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself
Sure,
first.
please.
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. I'm 76 years old. I used to be a clinical psychologist here in Wenatchee, practiced for about 25 years. I grew up in New York City.
Oh, okay.
Where for a while there, after the war, there were more Jews there than there were just about anywhere else.
It's true. True story.
Yeah, and I went to school in New York City, in New Jersey. After high school, I dropped out of college after a year. Too much wine, women, and song. enlisted in the Marine Corps rather than go to Vietnam. Everybody was getting drafted in those days. So rather than go to Vietnam with somebody who didn't know what they were doing, draftees,
okay, all right.
I decided I'd go with the cream of the
People
Corps.
know what they were doing. And for your service, thank you.
Oh, well,
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Yeah. Got out, went to grad school, finished up my bachelor's degree, went to grad school, became a psychologist after I got back from Nam, and I got involved with the PTSD movement before we had a name for it. And if you're interested, look up Jim Goodwin, PTSD, on Google.
you will find.
You will find.
Jim was a nationally known Prozac doctor.
Well, okay, wait, we haven't gotten to that
Okay,
yet.
sorry.
Okay. And so I served some time in the Army as an Army captain, Army psychologist.
Yeah.
Came here to Wenatchee. This is my wife.
Okay, well, you were a sergeant in the Marine Corps.
I was a sergeant in the Marine
And then
Corps.
you went from green to brown and became a captain.
Yeah, Well,
there you go.
I was a doctor, and served some time in the Army, then decided to come here to my wife's hometown. Now, I met my wife in 1974 at the University of Colorado.
Okay.
We were in Denver, and we got married in '76, and so she followed me through the military, through the Army. We came here to Wenatchee. I was one of the first people here in Wenatchee to recognize the utility of doing the psychotherapy, which is what I did,
Right.
but also using medication in conjunction. And psychologists in those days were against medication. And so there was a lot of backlash,
Really?
especially from some people here in town. And so for one reason or another, my practice went worldwide, I guess, because Wenatchee was the Prozac capital of the world.
Sure, remember those
And again, if you
stories?
want to check it out, check out Jim Goodwin, Prozac, or Jim Goodwin, Wenatchee on the internet, and you'll find a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you will. You will.
Yeah.
Quite some.
And then I had a really successful practice here, and now I'm retired.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so.
Now, we've been friends ever since I was a cop.
Ever since, yeah. And in fact, I remember the times we used to go out on patrol.
Yeah,
You with Mike Huffer, Corporal Huffer,
Right.
and Sergeant Magnotti, and we would go out for domestic violence type things. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That was one of my specialty areas, DV.
Yeah,
Matter
yeah.
of fact, in going into counseling and psychotherapy, that was one of my areas as well.
Right, yeah.
So okay.
All right, so that kind of fills in some history about
Right.
me.
I appreciate you doing that.
All right.
So,
Now, one more thing that I want to say too is about human perception. Since
Okay.
people are going to be out there listening and seeing through their senses and hearing, everything. There was a psychologist in 1890, his name was William James, who was really the forerunner in what we call cognitive psychology, thinking psychology, which is what I did.
Sure.
And he said, whilst part of what we perceive comes through our senses, from the objects before us, another part, and it may be the larger part, always comes out of our own mind.
comes through a filter.
Comes through a filter.
filter, right.
Our filter.
Yeah.
Our filter. And our filter is run by chemicals and all kinds of stuff we don't quite understand yet. Okay. And because of that, people find it hard to believe. Just because they perceive something and they start believing something, it's hard for them to understand other people don't necessarily see it that way.
You know
or
where this
think it
most
that way.
frequently comes into play?
Yeah.
Between a husband and his wife. Come on, it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
True,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
true. Yeah.
I see things, I say things, and
yeah.
Rosie looks at me and, what are you talking? I'm speaking English.
Well, they would come into my office saying, I can't communicate with my spouse.
Every couple says that.
Well, the reason being is because they perceive it differently.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of perceiving, unfortunately, causes a lot of problems, especially in the area of politics and religion.
Okay.
That's why we try not to talk about those
All right, good.
things.
We're getting a little far afield here. That's my fault. I know,
Okay,
but it's
okay. All right,
So
all right.
what does this have to do with the issue of anti-Semitism
Okay.
and what's happening
All right, well,
in the world,
Okay, for me, as a kid, I grew up in New York City, and in New York City, in the early 50s, it was the Jews caused World War II.
Right.
And so we went through a lot of that. That's when I first began. I was born in New Orleans, but we moved when I was a young kid to New York City. And that's when I first began to experience anti-Semitism. And even though the Puerto Ricans in the city were put down a lot, even the Puerto Ricans would call us dirty Jew bastards.
Right, okay.
You know, and so we went through a lot, and because of that, our family name was Goodstein.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, family name was Goodstein, but because it was too Jewish sounding, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism, what did we do?
Okay.
We changed it. Change it to Goodwin.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and that sounded more American.
But a lot what was motivating the anti-Semitism then was saying that claim that the Jews caused
World War. That was World War II. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
yeah.
of course, there's another reason why anti-Semitism has been rife through human history, because the Jews were blamed for what?
Well, the Jews were blamed for the death of Christ.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
but even before that, in the old Muslim, not the new people that see things a little bit differently, but in the old Muslim religion, Muhammad was really ticked off at the Jews because he thought, well, the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Muslims, Islam, and Judaism would all get together and he would be a prophet.
Right.
But the Jews, as usual, they're hard-nosed. They wouldn't accept...
You always say if you want 3 opinions, talk to 2 Jews.
Yeah, well, you get 10 opinions. They wouldn't accept that. And I think ever since time has begun, that's partially why there's such a backlash against Jews, because they've always looked at it in their particular way.
Sure.
And so things took off especially with the Arabs, since it's a big issue now, with Islam now. The old style, fighting and so on, and being angry at everybody else who isn't, this particular religion, that was why I think it really began for the Jews, because they were especially ticked off at Muhammad, who tried, to become a prophet.
Now, there was another religious leader who had a similar experience with his relationship to the Jews, Martin Luther.
Yeah.
Luther, when he started the Reformation, was very kind and open to the Jews, was accepting. However, he turned, and we saw his true colors when he came very, very nastily anti-Semitic, when the Jews wouldn't turn to Christianity. I mean, he's standing there with open arms, and you're saying, well, our religion, we're going to stay where we are. And when they didn't, when they didn't embrace Luther wrote some terrible things.
Yeah. Again, hard-nosed Jews.
Yeah.
All through history, they just would not change. And luckily, Islam and Christianity, they're more into being, this is nuts, this discrimination. But in the old days, that's kind of the way people looked at things. It's got to be this way or you're not with us. Yeah.
Now, again, you said you were experiencing as a child in the World War II thing, but it's been something else that's been with you throughout your life, right? I know you were open about your Jewish identity when you were serving in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Was there any
Well, the interesting thing about the Marines was when I first got into the Marines, I was stationed in California, and this was in the early, when was it? The early, late 70s, early 80s. It was you're Jewish, and we're Christian.
Right.
And I got into a couple of actual fistfights,
really?
With some fellow Marines, because I was Jewish.
Really?
Because I wore my dog tags that said Jewish on them. I could identify.
And your helmet in Nam, you had a Star David.
Well, now that changed. When I got to Vietnam, the Israelis were warriors. And everybody was proud of the Israelis, and they wanted to be like the Israelis. And when my squad, I was a squad leader, sergeant, when they found out I was Jewish, it's like, oh man, we're going to survive. He's going to get us through this. Outstanding. And so it was completely opposite. Yeah. And so I wore the star up there, and I actually had a gold star on my dog tags, and I played the role, of being a tough Israeli. No, Sergeant Goody. Yeah.
All right, so how about later times in your life?
Okay.
I know that in not too recent history, you had an issue with a neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you want to go there with that particular story.
Well, in my home in Wenatchee, we would celebrate Jewish holidays, and one of them is where you build booths in the backyard and so on. Sukkahs.
All right.
Yeah, sukkahs. And,
Forgive my pronunciation.
Yeah. Anyway, one day he saw that and he asked me about it. How come you guys are doing that? And I explained that we're Jewish, and et cetera, et cetera. A number of years later, he and I just didn't get along anyway.
Okay. All right.
But a number of years later, he put up a swastika.
Yes.
And it was right on his barn, and you open up our living room window, and there's this big black swastika. And to Jews, that's a hate crime.
Oh, basically.
Yeah, it's like burning a cross. It's like burning a cross in front of a black person.
Sure.
And so we went around and around and around, and finally I took it to court.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, he wasn't doing, I'm a psychologist, I could tell he wasn't a happy fellow, and I tried to get him some help, but they wouldn't do that. I tried to get his guns taken away, God forbid, because I was afraid he was, they wouldn't do that.
Posting a swastika is pretty extreme.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme.
That's like standing on a street corner and using the N-word to black people.
Yeah. But what happened was they told him, the court told him, get rid of the darn thing.
All right.
And ever since then, I think he's on Prozac now. he's feeling a hell of a lot better. He can smile now, and we can talk to one another.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I hope for nothing but good things for that person. So.
Anyway, so yeah, that was the most recent kind of experience. Here in Wenatchee, I have not experienced much, other than that, much in the way of anti-Semitism.
Well, we don't have a large Jewish population.
No, we don't. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, okay, I grew up in New Jersey. We were talking off camera. I mean, in my hometown of Caldwell, we had a well-attended synagogue. I mean, kids were constantly having their, oh my gosh, this is when you get old. When you're
bar mitzvahs?
Bar mitzvahs, yeah.
Bas mitzvahs for the females, bar mitzvahs for the males.
Well, they weren't having bas mitzvahs back then. I mean, that's more of a reform thing.
Yeah.
It's more of a modern thing. I don't know if any girls having a bas mitzvah back in my day.
Yeah.
But we even had a Jewish butcher, a kosher butcher on Main Street, a big, window with two Hebrew words in the window. So, but out here, there's only a handful of people who are
actually Jewish.
Yeah.
But maybe there's about 20 families that we know of.
Okay.
And we periodically get together with some of the holidays. I didn't do any research for this meeting we have today, other than I wanted to look at the numbers of Jews around. And apparently in America, there are around 8 million.
Okay, probably.
Okay?
So.
And in the world, there are approximately 16 million.
Right, so we've got half of them in our country.
Yeah, so we've got about half of them in our country.
Okay.
They make up about, 2.4% of the population in the U.S. In the world, they make up 0.02%.
Okay.
So.
All right, well, look, we got to take a break, okay? About halfway through. We need to take a break. I'm talking with Dr. Jim Goodwin. Jim is a member of the Chosen People. He is a Jewish man I've been friends with quite some time. Due to the rise of issues with anti-Semitism pending in this country, and that may not be the right way to put it, I did want to discuss it today, but we're going to take a break, come back, and take a look at some more current events in a minute. But hey, Street Talk and other stuff, you stick around. We will be right back. So.
Are you hungry enough to eat the end out of a rhinoceros? I know how you feel. Come on out to Blueberry Hills. You'll have a great time. We've got excellent food, a feet on the furniture kind of experience, and we won't hustle you out of your table. If you want a real farm experience, make the trek to Manson to Blueberry Hills, where you sit, you pick, you eat, and you visit. So come on out and see what all the fuss is about. Blueberry Hills in Manson. It's where the world is coming to.
Bienvenido al Centro de Resolución de Conflictos. Brindamos servicios a los condados de Grant y Adams, ayudando a empresas y personas a resolver problemas difíciles. Ofrecemos ayuda con conflictos de trabajo, problemas residenciales y asuntos familiares. Podemos capacitar a su personal en habilidades de prevención y resolución de conflictos. Llámenos al 509-237-3705 para obtener más información.
Hey, hon, would you run this around to the wash rack?
Oh, okay.
Hey, hon, what happened?
They shrunk the truck.
The all-new midsize Canyon is now available at Sangster Motors.
This is the time of year we celebrate family, traditions, and great food. At Abby's, our legendary pizzas are so giant that they feed up to 6 happy family members. When you need a break from cooking, think Abby's, our place or your place. Our family is here for your family. What makes Abby's triple topper so great?
Canadian bacon, pepperoni, ground beef.
With these premium toppings piled to the edge, it's a whole lot of pizza on sale for a very special price. Order your triple topper now at abbys.com.
Okay, we're back. Surprise, surprise. We're in very, very good conversation while we're off camera. We'll kind of initiate some of it here. But the recent issue with Israel and Hamas right now, okay, is causing a lot of people to form opinions that in some ways are not really based on what the reality of the situation is. And do you want to comment on that a little bit? Or because I can too, but you're my guest, and I want you to talk.
Whilst part of what we perceive comes through our senses from the object before us, a larger part comes right out of our own mind. Okay, so the reality is, yes, there's a war going on over there. And unfortunately, there are, Hamas is a group of people that want to push Israel into the sea and kill all the Jews. And we call that genocide. And so, and this has been going on for quite a while. It's not it's not the people who live in Palestine that are the issue. They have a right to live, okay, like anybody else does. But as far as these genocidal murders are concerned, Israel can't live with them.
No, definitely they can't.
Yeah.
You know? And I mentioned it to somebody the other day. I mean, what if California was, you know, occupied by people who just wanted to kill us and occasionally came attacked? But, you know, we mentioned this before. I mean, if people look into the history, or who don't look at the history, will say, well, look at Israel's, the size of it now compared to the way it was original when they declared their state. It's much larger, which they perceive that all Israel done is gone over and taken over this land. But, for example, the reason the left bank is part of Israel or under Israeli control now, it wasn't part of the original partition, but it was because Jordan kept shelling the new city of Jerusalem in '67, which prompted that war. And the reason Israel has expanded is because they're expanding their territory because they keep getting attacked. Okay? Now, I'm not saying they're completely guiltless. I don't think anybody is. I mean, but your perception of what's going on has got to be based on the history starting back before 1948, before the nation actually became into existence, by authority of the United Nations.
Right. United Nations basically, well, did they call it the United Nations back then? I guess so, they did,
yeah. It was 48.
Yeah, it was 48. They partitioned the land. Now, the interesting thing was there were 2 states. And there was the left bank, and there was Israel, which was very small. Very small. But what began to happen is that the folks, all the surrounding Arabs,
5 Arab nations,
all the surrounding Arabs decided, we don't like this. Now, the Jews were okay with a 2-state solution at that point in time. They were fine because they were buying up the land from the Arabs. And so they moved out that way. They didn't have to fight at that point. They just bought things up. But the overlying Arabs said no way. And so there was the first war of independence.
And then there was a ceasefire. Okay. And there was a ceasefire, and I remember I read this in the book O Jerusalem by Collins and LaPierre. You can look it up for yourself. Ben Gurion is meeting with his cabinet, okay? And he's saying, look, we have accepted this ceasefire, and we are going to agree to let it to continue, okay? And he said this, let's just hope the Arabs don't, because if they break the ceasefire and attack us, that will give us the opportunity to actually create a state that we can defend. Now, that's what happened. The Jews accepted the ceasefire. They accepted it to continue. The Arabs didn't. The Arabs attacked. The Jews basically won the second element of that war, and that's why their territory began to expand. Now, again, you can argue with it and say that's right or not right, but like I said, if the Arabs would leave the Jews alone, it'd be a completely different story.
Right,
okay?
right. But again, it's really not, well, it was the Arab countries around, but now it's not necessarily the Arabs so much as it is Hamas.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Arabs there. It's Hamas.
Right.
And unfortunately, they see things, again, they perceive things differently than the Israelis do. What's interesting is, what didn't they call it, the Abraham Accords or something or other? Jimmy Carter, who, you know, Rosalind recently just died.
Right, I know.
Bless her, yeah. With Jimmy Carter and Sadat and who was it? The Israeli fellow, Rabin or something.
Menachem Begin.
Begin. It was Begin. They decided, okay, we'll do a two-state solution.
Right.
And guess what? Never got instituted. Why? Because they fought it.
Exactly.
Yeah, again.
Now, something else that people don't understand, there was a de facto exchange of population when Israel was declared a state. There were about, and again, Collins and LaPierre, O Jerusalem, there were about 50,000 Jews in Arab nations that were expelled.
Yeah.
What happened to them?
Well, unfortunately,
Israel accepted them. Okay.
They accepted them, but the powers that be, the other Arab powers, told them to leave.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you know, the Israelis accepted them, but again, the powers that be said, get out of here because we're going to conquer these guys and push them out.
Well, that's why there was, like I said, there was an exchange of population. There were approximately 50,000 refugees who were not accepted. They were forced into areas like the Gaza Strip and other places, and they were allowed to fester because they continued to be a thorn in Israel's side. So
what's interesting is the Gaza Strip is also a thorn in Egypt's side. You know, because the Israelis gave back the Negev desert and were wanting to give back Gaza to the Egyptians.
The Egyptians didn't want it.
The Egyptians didn't want it. They don't want these troublemakers, you know.
Okay, well, look, I appreciate you being here, and I'm sorry. We could go on forever about this. I know we're only touched on it, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with what was said. But do a little research, okay? If you're interested, I can have a whole reading list of things you can read that will give you a balanced view of this. But hey, Dr. Goodwin, we're going to go back and say goodbye, but
I just want to say, my perceptions are my own. Just like they say at the disclosure, please don't consider my perceptions and my beliefs everyone else's beliefs.
The opinions of Mike Magnotti do not represent those.
Exactly. Mine don't represent it. Exactly.
Okay, well, hey, Street Talk and other stuff. Stick around. We will be right back.
All right.
Lose yourself in the magic of the most wonderful time of the year at Cirque Dreams Holidays. This electrifying stage production has captured the imagination of audiences throughout the country. Delight in the holiday season as the world's finest circus artists perform alongside a cast of lovable holiday characters. Sprinkled with high-energy dance numbers and festive holiday music, it's the perfect gift for the entire family.
At D.A. Davidson in Wenatchee, they believe your investment success begins with a personalized plan. A plan that is the roadmap you need to navigate your way to living your best years in retirement. D.A. Davidson can help you create a plan so you can take the time to enjoy the finer things in life. Let the financial...
Okay, we're back. Dr. James, hey, thank you very much. Always
my
good
pleasure.
To talk to you.
Good to see you again, buddy.
Okay, God bless you. But like I said...
God bless you, too. And happy Hanukkah.
Yes. And Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you.
But hey, Street Talk and other stuff. Do a little research, folks. Do a little reading on this topic if you're interested in it. But hey, Street Talk and other stuff, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
By some of the best high school athletes in the country. You'll hear from a rising soccer star who's about to begin her pro career. We'll bring you interviews with rising football stars in Maryland and Florida, and we'll introduce you to one of the best players in girls basketball. Those stories and more are coming up next on Sports Stars of Tomorrow. Welcome to Sports Stars of Tomorrow. I'm your host, Charles Davis. Today is our Inspirational Athlete Special, when we tell you about athletes who have beaten the odds and also give back to their communities. We'll start with a soccer